I went to the UK, I kind of went into my shell, which is something I'd never done. And I was almost being told to get louder. Whereas now maybe my teammates or coaches might tell me to shut up, but that's like, that's just the flip side of it when you're confident in a scenario. But I think myself being shaped identity wise, I felt it most when, I guess an example would be I went to Cardiff Met for the first preseason. I had a bit of a tough first few weeks. My first game wasn't very good. First time playing men's rugby and stuff. But then I ended up getting drafted in late because of an injury to a preseason game against Taunton, who at the time were a National 1 team. And this was with the Buck Super Rugby team. And I played out of my skin. I was 19 at the time. I put in a great performance. We lost, but I felt good. I was getting accolades from my teammates. They were singing my name on the bus. My coaches were cheering my name.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Trauma, Training and Transformation. I'm Dr. James Alder, and before I begin, I want to ground today's conversation into something personal. As many as you know, I'm a military veteran living with PTSD. Movement, training, and rebuilding my sense of self have been the pillars of my recovery. This podcast is part of my ongoing journey. My way of being honest, opening conversation with like-minded guests will help others who carry their own internal battles, whether in sport, life, or in silence. What we do here isn't about glorifying performance. It's about understanding the human being underneath it. The pressure, the identity, doubts, the resilience, and the strength it takes to keep showing up. Today, I'm joined by a young Canadian rugby player whose own story reflects not just athletic performance, but is the psychological depth. Jamin Hodgkins. Jamin, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah. Thank you, James, for having me on. Yeah, I guess a bit about me. I'm Canadian. However, I was born and raised in Bermuda. My dad is from Bermuda. My mom's from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I lived in Bermuda till I was about 13, played rugby there, grew up playing Bermuda mini rugby. And then I moved out to Canada for boarding school on the West Coast at Shawnigan Lake School, where I learned to love the game even more. And then after that, graduated there and I went to Cardiff Met University in Wales. I played 2 years there, and then I played for the Bridgend Ravens in the Welsh Premiership. And then I moved on to National 2 in England, played for Lectonians, and now I'm back in Canada on the West Coast at the Pride. So that Pride is the Performance Academy for Rugby Canada.
From being exposed to rugby in Canada to the UK, be it Wales or England, then coming back to the Pride program, how have you found that journey on the level of expectations put on yourself?
I suppose when I went from Shawnigan Lake here in Canada to the UK, I thought the transition would be, and this might be naive, I was 18 at the time, I thought it'd be a little bit more seamless. I had quite a few fair share of setbacks, or what I would claim as setbacks, because of where my standards were for myself versus maybe the teams I was playing in over in Cardiff Met. So I learned at quite a young age that you can't control everything, and I think it was good at such a young age to have those setbacks, and we can touch on them, I guess, later in the podcast. But rather, I learned them a lot earlier than I did later, whereas a lot of people's growth is very linear. Mine hasn't been that way, so really helped me early on in that sense. Yeah, and then coming back here, just balancing the difference in maybe attention to detail in rugby in Canada versus the UK. It's not as big a sport. Not everybody watches it. They might play it, but they don't watch it, or they don't live and breathe it like they do in Wales, where it's their national sport. So balancing being fully immersed in a rugby nation versus coming back has been something that's been interesting as well.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I've got to see you from the touchline, playing for the Privateers, but also working with the Celtics this year on the East Coast, and just seeing that huge growth displayed on the rugby field, both as an athlete, but also as a leader. If you look at your journey, you've managed that expectation, which shaped your identity. You've dealt with the pressures, your confidence must have gone up and down during that time. Have you dealt with criticism, ambition? Have you been able to live to those standards consistently and felt belonged? When did you first notice about your identity was being shaped, not just on the rugby field, but off it too?
I think on the field, I've always been a loud, kind of somewhat maybe bossy character. I mean, you naturally have to be at fly half because of the way that the position is set up. I think when I went to the UK, I kind of went into my shell, which is something I'd never done. And I was almost being told to get louder. Whereas now maybe my teammates or coaches might tell me to shut up, but that's that's just the flip side of it when you're confident in a scenario. But I think myself being shaped identity wise, I felt it most when, I guess an example would be, I went to Cardiff Met for the first preseason. I had a bit of a tough first few weeks. My first game wasn't very good. First time playing men's rugby and stuff. But then I ended up getting drafted in late because of an injury to a preseason game against Taunton, who at the time were a National One team. And this was with the Buck Super Rugby team. And I played out of my skin. I was 19 at the time. I put in a great performance. We lost, but I felt good. I was getting accolades from my teammates. They were singing my name on the bus. My coaches were cheering my name. And then the next week, I was on the bench against Abervale, which is, again, a big team in Wales, another preseason game. And I came on and I had a decent cameo, but it was about 15 minutes. And then after that, went down a team again, and then down another team straight week after with minimal feedback. The feedback was probably just game time at the time. But for me as a young kid, I'm here in one game, and then everything just you hit the peak and then everything goes. And I think the biggest mindset switch I had to understand is there's so many games in the UK where you have to be consistent game after game after game. Whereas in Canada, we don't play as many games. So you can put in a good performance. You might get a week off, or you might only play 8 games in a season. So you can just focus on 8 games. I played 28 games in my first season. So I could have a really good game and then I could have a really bad game. And what it really shaped to me was learning to deal with the setbacks as a 19-year-old kid, where you're at the top playing for the first team, starring in that game against players who are on Exeter Chiefs Academy or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you're in the third team. And I had to deal with that with maybe a bit of minimal feedback, but my mindset was just I just have to keep working. I don't think I've ever stopped working. I'll still do, no matter what happens, I'll still do the exact same kind of routine that I do, the exact same skill work that I do. Never miss my lifts. I'll never stop short in the gym, unless obviously you're injured, which you might have to. But regardless of ups and downs, I've just tried to stay as consistent as possible since maybe I was 16.
So, Jamin, you mentioned about the Bucks League. Just for those who don't know, it's the British University League, where all the university teams are in their own division based on the level of the university. And you mentioned Cardiff Met during your time there. They've got a really good reputation, both as a university but also rugby setup. In your struggles there, is that because of leaving Canada for the first time to go there, or was it the standard of rugby, or did you just not understand what that transition was going to be like?
It's probably a little bit of both. You're kind of on top of the world in one place, starting fly off for Canada 18s, captain of my school team. You're just kind of at the top, and then you come in. And to be fair, I came in, and the way that Cardiff Met set up is there's a performance preseason. That'll be the top 60 guys, attorneys plus recruits. Then they'll have a step 2 and a step 3 and so on and so forth. And I came into the performance one, and yeah, I would just say in those environments, there's 12 teams, 500 players. It's very difficult, and it could be different now, so I don't want to speak for what it is now, but it's very difficult to get one-on-one feedback from coaches when there's minimal coaches to player ratio. And then I struggled the most with being in a consistent team. So I played a majority of my rugby in either the Welsh Championship squad, which would be deemed as the second team, or the Bucks 2 team, which would be deemed as the third team. And I think I played 28 games, and I probably had 19 or 20 center partnerships, center pairings, and 19 or 20 scrum half pairings. So my thing for me was I struggled a lot with kind of building relationships with my teammates, because I was consistent in, I think of the Bucks 2 team, I played majority of those games, but those around me changed all the time. So that was difficult. The other thing that was difficult was, you're not comfortable maybe with some of the banter at first. It took me a few years to just understand the people as well, which is huge in building relationships off the field. So that was big too. I think, all in all, mixture of everything. And also, if I'm honest, I was probably naive at the time, where I probably thought I knew more about rugby than I did. I probably thought I understood the momentum of the game, how to really apply pressure, and actually just how to execute it more than I did. Whereas on reflection, if I stepped into that environment now, I could probably boss it way more than what I probably felt I could do at the time. But you're got to be a little bit deluded no matter what, right? So yeah, it's probably a mixture of everything. I do believe had there been feedback and time put into players with potential that they could flourish, and you could see it in some cases. But yeah, it just never transpired for me. But that's the way it works.
Had exposure to that level of rugby, new country, new playing style, intermittent changes in the team based on what team you're going to play in. Didn't really impact you on your playing ability. I think you've come back to Canada much the better because of that exposure. You're very confident, you're very driven. But if you look back in your early days, you mentioned about when you first started in rugby, you was a role model back then. What was that first moment into rugby and what shaped you to feel you had a future in it?
So I played since I was about 4 or 5 in Bermuda mini rugby, but there's a picture of me doing the old Johnny Wilkinson stance when I'm probably about 5 years old. I could probably send that to you. You could probably put it on screen. But I didn't really start to get obsessed with it until I was about 14 or 15, maybe. And I had two role models other than my dad. Of course, I got to mention my dad. My dad is a huge role model and a huge helped me with my skills and helped me with my like feedback, constant feedback, and it's good. But my coach at Shawnigan Lake School near Monroe, he's 30 odd caps for Canada at fly half, went to 2007 and 2011 World Cup, professional for Edinburgh, and Waterloo and Colorno in Italy. He was huge in shaping me, taught me how to kick, taught me everything I know about kicking the ball, most of the things I know about rugby up until I left school, but then I'm still in contact with him now. He's the one who set me up back at the Pride, let me get a job with him. So that's a huge role model for me. He's more of a mentor than a role model as well. Like he's there if I need him, I can text him. And then as a player, I looked up to always was Owen Farrell. I mean, everyone probably knows that just by, if you know me, you know that by just watching the way that I kick. But I just loved the way that he would lead around the field, his communication, the way he never backed down from a challenge. Like he gets better in big games, whereas a lot of people can go into their shell in big games. And I like to try and pride myself on like, if there's something on the line, like I will shoulders back, chest up, that kind of mentality I really respected. So he was huge for me as well. I would just watch him since the age of 14. I'd watch all his games, just kind of try and pick up on how he moves around the field, how he makes decisions, why he made this decision here. I think a lot of people just watch rugby to watch rugby. I'm quite intent on like I'll watch rugby games based on who the fly half is playing so that I can watch them. I have a specific few that I really like watching, and yeah, so those two in particular were huge for me.
And they're incredible role models, both at your younger age and obviously as you go through to the high levels of rugby. I think Owen and Andy Farrell, incredible career in the game, and I can see why he can be a role model to you, but many other stars who want to, go on to the game. You went from Bermuda to Canada, and then Canada, you tried yourself in the UK. When did you make the decision to see a future, a career, so to speak, into rugby?
I suppose you just kind of take it like all one step at a time. So I'm 15, you have a dream. But then when I'm 17, I get picked for Canada 18s a year young. Then when I'm 18, I get picked for Canada 18s again. Then unfortunately for me, COVID hit. So I got picked for the under 20s straight out of school, but COVID hit. So that would have been 3 years young for under 20s. And then I had to wait, I guess it would be 2 years to actually get my 20s cap. So then you play 20s, I got named on a tournament 15 accolade, which is cool. But then you get you're up again. And I think I've just always had my eyes set on it. Whether there was something that was like, ooh, I can do this, I don't know. I think maybe it's a bit of delusion, but then somehow steps have just fallen in place. But then there's been setbacks as well. So I get called up to my first Canada squad in November of 2023, and I sign a contract, my first semi-professional contract with Bridgend Ravens, which we can get into because I could have stayed there too. But then you probably see it going a little bit more linear than it has, and then it's like I'm back in Canada and I'm happy to be here. But is it where I foresaw myself after that first Canada November tour? Probably not. So yeah, it's kind of just one of those things where you just keep chasing it because you can do it, if that makes sense.
Well, is that a battle, an internal battle between the identity, athletic identity, and the personal identity, and the poles between the two? They must have overtwined at some time. you're back in Canada, you're happy,
Yeah.
you're close to home and in that sense. But then you had the opportunity to stay out in Wales, playing high level rugby. The athleticism and the challenge is in different clash. And how did you make the decisions?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of at the time when I was in Wales, in terms of rugby, I was loving it. In terms of life, maybe not so much. I think I probably had my fix of Wales. I had my fix of the UK in terms of the dingy, dark wetness. I mean, I'm here sat and it's probably raining outside right now, but being around like familiar people makes it easier. So I think that was a bit of a mix, which is why my next steps I'm looking at maybe a new challenge somewhere in maybe Australia or New Zealand or something like that. Uh, but I do have that pull a lot of the time where I'm like, shit, should I have stayed? Sorry, I don't know if I'm honest, but should I have stayed? I don't know. It's a big what if, but you can't really. You made the decision, and now you just got to back it and keep going and staying consistent. Like I said.
If anyone wants to look up anything to do with German, you can see your Instagram and your social media where you can see some clips, the tries, definitely a lot of the conversions you've done in the UK with the privateers and so on. But what people don't see, and you touched on it a little bit there, is the mental load that you've got to put up with. Are you making the right decision for yourself? Are you doing it because of what does the future hold? So, what has been the biggest mental and emotional adjustment that you've had to do, especially as you progress through rugby, but on the same side, your personal life too?
I mean, mental loads like in personal life, it would have to be maybe relationships and stuff like that. Like that's always going to have a huge and trying to balance getting better at what you want to get better at while having those personal challenges that might be going on, whether they'd be like relationships with girlfriends or just at home or whatever it is. Those are always a tough struggle to balance. But I think the biggest one would be for me, it might be going through it currently is I you're on a high, you get into your first Canada squad at 21 years old, and then I'll be 24 in February, and I haven't had that experience since July of 2024. So that's what you're chasing. That's what you want to get to. World Cups in 2 years, and you get to it again, and then all of a sudden in the darkness kind of thing, in the deep end, not on a depth chart list that comes out that's posted on social media or whatever it is. Whether or not you know you're on one or not, people might not. So I think that's probably the hardest thing I'm dealing with now is trying to you were there and then now all of a sudden you've got to work your way all the way back up again. So that's got to be one of the toughest challenges because I could go into dive into personal life, but ultimately my life at the moment until I decide to give it up is surrounded by rugby. There's a lot that goes on off the field too, but 5 days a week I'm doing this sport, right? So, and there's one goal, which is go to the World Cup, get capped for your country, which are synonymous with the two. So that's probably the biggest thing at the moment is, you're there and then you've just fallen off into the deep end and you've got to try and swim your way out again. So yeah.
But both things coexist, right? Even though you're not having much of a personal life outside of rugby, it's still shaping you, isn't it? Those decisions that you've got to make,
Yeah.
the expectation you put on your own shoulders.
Yeah, and there is a personal life outside of rugby. It's just not what probably affects my mental health the most, if that makes sense. Like the stuff outside of rugby at the moment is actually quite good. I'm quite happy with my life outside of rugby. Quite happy with my rugby life as well. It's just that weighs on your mind the whole time. So no matter what, like every game you play, you're looking at it like, did I do the things they gave me feedback for? Then if I did the things they gave me feedback for, have I done the things that I'm also good at already? Do you know what I mean? So you're almost watching it hypercritical. But the best thing that I've been taught was by my mentor, Ender, who said, play rugby, and if you play well, things will come. Whereas I was probably playing based on what coaches wanted me to do in terms of higher up. And I was probably going, which is, we can talk about how I ended up coming back to Canada as well, because that conversation initially started from the ex-men's head coach asking me to come back to Canada so that he could work on things with me, like individual skills that he wanted me to get better at, and I could be in an environment with him. And then he left or got released. And then after that, it's like I came back, but then I'm not in the plans for the new head coach at the moment. So that's been a tough struggle. You make a move and all of a sudden you make a move for one decision, and all of a sudden it all blows up, and it's like, damn, could have stayed elsewhere. So yeah,
Let's look at unpack the little bit of you're out in the UK playing a very high level of rugby, you're enjoying it. Yeah, there's challenges, you're getting pushed to your limits to be a better player, and then you get asked to come back, making that decision, what's best for your career, is there a future there, are you being told the right things? How was that for you as a person? And now looking back, do you feel like you've made the right decision, or do you feel you've still got something to prove where you're at?
I don't think the decision was a tough one. It was actually quite a simple one. When a head coach of the national team wants you and specifically to come back because they see the potential in you and they want to work with you, I was like, yeah, of course I'll come back. Did I know that they were going to get released? No. So if I knew that when I made the decision, maybe not. But it was an easy decision because I had a coach at the time who, yes, I hadn't got capped yet, but he had me in squads and he believed in me and he saw the potential in me, and I was willing to relocate for him. And yeah, I was playing what would be a probably a much higher level of rugby overseas than is in Canada at this moment in time. It could change with all the MLR rules, but yeah, it was a pretty easy decision. But now, as soon as the news breaks, I think in my head it's going to be the same. The new head coach will still work with me. He'll still see my potential, or I'll still be a type of player that he wants. But the team has gone in a different direction, and I haven't had that level of kind of like interpersonal relationship at the moment, which hopefully will change. And I mean, new coach, he has to find out about everyone. So, you can't really blame him. And I have to show through my performances that he wants to be interested in me. But yeah, did I know that that was going to happen? No. And if I had, maybe I would have stayed, but it's a big maybe. And it's a big hindsight 2020 situation. So I can't really, what can you really say? I'm here now. I've got to make the most of it.
Very much so, and you come across really grounded, very mature in the way that you discuss that. What I've always noticed from afar, but also working with you, is how committed, how professional you are in that playing environment. When everyone else finishes training, you're doing that extra bit in games. You're always trying to push yourself, try different things. You're trying to get the players playing at an higher level than probably what they're used to. And that's because you're confident about yourself. But I think you got that confidence based on your exposure to high level rugby. But have you also had those challenges in the game where things haven't worked and you've had to find ways, that resilience, get over that mental barrier to still find success?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit about the exposure as well. But also I've just always kind of I always believe that if the boys want to work hard and want to put in the work, they can be better than what you are without it. So, pushing people to standards is something I just always do because I just see, and sometimes it can come across as negative. I've fallen into that trap a few times where people might think it's negative, but truthfully, I know that the teams that I'm on can be so much better than they are. Even if you're winning every game, you can be so much better than you are. Like, it's just about potential. I see players with a lot of potential, and myself too. I vocalize a lot of my own standard holdings. If I'm telling someone to get off the line, I'm telling myself to get off the line, just verbally out loud, if that makes sense as well. But yeah, in terms of in game and stuff, things not going your way and then trying to find a way out of it. Plenty of times, you're down in games and you might have a game plan and all of a sudden it's not working and you have to figure it out. But specifically, I can't put necessarily a finger on one moment at the right now on the top of my head, but there'll be moments where you'll have a game plan where everything is you want to run the ball from everywhere, but all of a sudden you look at the pictures on the field and there's so much kick space, or you notice that maybe that team can't kick as well as you thought they could. And so me as a fly half, I understand that if I start pinning them back, they're not going to exit as well. We're going to get the ball back in better positions than running it from everywhere. Or you might have a game plan that's to put high balls up on a fullback for the entire game, but then he might take 5 or 6 super well. Then you're like, okay, that's not working. So now you have to switch it up and maybe go more long and on, less contestable, or play a bit more and tire him out in the backfield, or except like these things you have to adjust on the fly. I think sometimes we can get caught up in this is a game plan, we have to stick to it, but things need to change if it doesn't work, if that makes sense. And also if pictures are changed, you can put a game plan in, but if the picture's different, I could think about, now we didn't win the game, so it might not be the best example, but we played against Chicago Hounds Academy recently, and our game plan was to run everything. And to be fair, we kicked maybe 6 or 7 times in the first half, 3 were exits. That's not a lot of kicks. 7 kicks is not a lot of kicks. But I started to notice that they couldn't exit that well. So why not put them under pressure to exit if they can't do it that well? They were trying to do the same thing as us and play out. So then I'm putting them under pressure. Now we get the ball back on a 40-meter line versus trying to play from our own 40-meter line. It's a better place to set up a set piece and set up an attack. So these things, yeah, they happen in games and you have to try and adjust on the fly. You can't always hope that the plan's going to work. Most of the time, the game plan will be right. Your coach has done his homework and it will be right. But when it isn't, you have to adjust on the fly.
Just a little bit about learning from those experiences in one of your last games. But during high performance rugby, the pressure's real. It's about making the team, making the right decisions in the team. Can you touch on any game that really stands out where the pressure was at the highest for you? And how was that experience for you? How did you get through that experience?
Like the highest pressure games I've probably played in would be, unfortunately, I haven't really had a chance to play in many finals recently. We do have the coast to coast finals, but they're kind of curated already, set up as they're a one-off game almost, where the Atlantic Privateers in Atlantic Canada would play Ontario. And those are pressure games because you never want to lose to Ontario. I would say though, on a personal level, my first game for Bridgend starting was against Pontypridd on the anniversary of, or the Remembrance Day of JPR Williams, who was like a Welsh legend, Bridgend legend, and there was about 3,000 people in the stands, and it was my first start, my first time playing a level rugby that high, and I was so nervous for like the first 20 minutes. I remember a couple mistakes where I tried to kick crossfield high ball and it basically went backwards, couple like loose passes here or there, but then you're naturally going to be nervous, and mistakes will happen. The way that I just react is I always like to grow into games, or I always feel like if mistakes are happening, I'll grow into the game. So if the first 20 minutes is a bit shaky, I'll just go the next 20 minutes. And naturally, as it went on, I think I got taken off about 65 minutes, but we won 15-12. I kicked 12 of the 15 points, and it was just like I felt quite comfortable by the end of it. Because whenever I could easily have gone into my shell and been like I'm not ready for this level, but whenever a mistake would happen, I'd be like, okay, cool, now I see what it's like, and then I would go into it and I kind of just would understand what it's like every single time. And then that game ended, and by the end of the season, you're comfortable with the level of rugby because it is a step up from Canada. But then once you're comfortable with that, it's then you can potentially maybe go to the next level, which would be for us international test level, because professional contracts are hard to come by. And I'm sure what it's like for new caps, I haven't unfortunately experienced it myself, would be that's fast, or oh, that's physical. But then you can just adjust, and it's a shock at first, but you have two options. You either go, oh, I didn't like that, or here we are. Okay, let's go. So that's kind of my mindset is, oh, okay, let's go now. Okay, we're here now. So that's kind of how I deal with those pressure moments, is chest up, shoulders back. Let's go get it now.
You talk about the experience of that game. It's quite a big game in Wales, playing for a really historic, and your experience there, making an error and not letting that error really impact your performance up fully in the game. So would you say that the pressure of the moment, the game, the competition is higher, or the pressure you put on yourself to perform is greater?
That one in particular would be the pressure I put on myself. But you also know the occasion it is and what it means to people, especially in Bridgend, that town. There's so much rugby history, and JPR Williams was beloved in that town. He's a hero of that town. So to get a victory for the fans and the people in that town on that day is huge as well. But I maybe was a bit naive to it because, I'm new to Wales. I don't know the history of players, but in terms of other scenarios I've been in, it's a lot of it too with privateers is I don't want to let down the people that put so much time and effort into the program. Or when I was at Shawinigan Lake School, I don't want to let down the alumni before me. There's a large history of alumni there. Rugby Canada as well is the exact same. When I played 20s or 18s, you don't want to let down your country. But that mindset of don't want to let down is not what I go into the game with. I go into the game with, I want to make them proud. Because I think if you go into it and you're thinking, I don't want to let these people down, it's a bit of a negative mindset. So in the pressure games, there's a lot of things I'll do before. I try and treat it the same as any other game. But in terms of my mental, I'm thinking about those people that have put me in positions to be in this situation, because ultimately I've done a lot of my own hard work to get there, but other people have put me in positions and gone out their way for me as well. So I want to do it for them as well. So like the occasion's great, but you take the occasion out of it and you just make it about your circle is what I would do. Yeah.
And you've had some great experiences with the privateers out in with the Pride in the UK, but you put a massive weight of expectation on your own shoulders. And I think it's a credit to you that you carry that weight. But who do you talk to? Who do you have that moments to have that self-care, that self-talk? Who do you share that burden with?
Oh, like thing is, I would say my dad, but then he'd give me some sort of constructive criticism. I don't know. Honestly, I'm in an RN about a sports psychologist for years now. But it's just the thing that holds me back is I want to find one that's recommended from people I know and trust. I don't want to just go to anybody, and it's definitely something I need to do more. I think maybe in my house here, me and my friends, like Evan Logan, who you'd be familiar with, like we chat a lot, and he's quite a good soundboard. But one thing I definitely need to get is, and I want to get, is a sports psychologist. Is just finding the right one. Maybe we could talk off air if you know any, but yeah, like it's definitely something that I think athletes need to do more of, because I don't think enough athletes have a soundboard to listen to. In the past, it might have been relationships, like girlfriends in the past would have to listen to me moan or rant about rugby, and they probably hated it, but like that's part of the job, I guess. But yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely something when you say it, I'm like, "Oh, good point.
Well, you mentioned there about Evan. Evan's an incredible bloke. Tyler Marchion's out there, and Sam Miller, who's just gone
Yeah,
out to Portugal. Lucky boy. Having those familiar
yeah,
faces, yes,
yeah,
it's
I
great
know.
for that
Follow his
banter
footsteps.
and that working together and helping each other out. But it's even so, the level of resilience I see from you is incredible. Someone who's not seeked help or got anyone that you can share that burden with you. So, what do you use then, other than talking to some of your friends? What mental mechanisms that you rely on to get through the toughest moments that you live in, especially on the rugby
I write a
field
lot
where
of
you have to
notes.
face those challenges?
Yeah, I write a lot of notes in my notebook. I think writing things down can be your best friend. But yeah, I like I'm an avid note taker. I'm an avid little like just like if I have any thoughts. I think I'm more inclined to write notes if it's been a tough week prior. If it's been a good week, and I probably should be more consistent on the note writing things, but if it's been a tough week prior, I'm more diligent with like reflection, like preview, review, but like a personal reflection about how I felt, how I executed things is what I'd write. But I don't do it enough when it's a good week still. Other than that, coping mechanisms. Fortunately, I don't have many vices, so I don't have any of those, but I think just spending time with my friends or things that make me happy, sit in bed, watch some YouTube, or although the YouTube will probably be rugby, which makes me sound incredibly boring, but it's probably some sort of podcast that's about rugby. And then yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we have to work still at the Pride. We do get paid, but not enough to sustain ourselves full time. So that takes my mind off things. But yeah, like having this conversation with you here, I'm like, I probably need to get some sort of better soundboard or coping mechanism in that sense.
We talk about a lot about resilience, both physical and mental, but it's not just the talking, it's the lived experience that we go through. And the reason I ask you what kind of mechanisms you have, yes, there's loads of great rugby podcasts out at the moment. You get to share and listen to other players' experiences, and you can feed off that a little bit. Listen to your friends, not just being a soundboard, but they can actually offer that reassurance sometimes that you might be critical
100%.
about
Yeah.
yourself, right? But having those people
Yeah.
around you is
Yeah.
great. Keeps you grounded. You say you don't have vices, which is incredible for a young man of your age. So what kind of things keep you grounded? Is it just the love of the sport? When the moments get too much, for instance, you talked about setbacks of not getting to the U20 side, COVID knocked you back because you had to then wait, and then you come back here, and then the coach leaves, and then so there's a lot there, really. I look at you, you're an incredible athlete, look really grounded. So what's the secret?
Yeah. There've been a few setbacks. So I'm only 23, so I think I just love it, man. I have like my mom always, because my dad's pushed me my whole life to be better, and a lot of people have concerns that maybe, they say like that, like a lot of times it'll be a parent's dream and not the kid's dream, but I think he knows and I know like this is my dream, and I can only see it going one way. Like I feel like I just want it so bad that I'm never gonna let it get to me, because until I see Jamin Hodgkins number such and such and such on a cap, but even then I'll see that and I'll be like, okay, now I want 5 more of those. Now I want 10 more of those. That's just how I am. And I think that's just natural. You get like, that's the goal right now. Is to get back into a squad. And then that happens, and then the goal can be to get a cap. That happens, and then you know what it is from there. Like I don't know. There's a few things that I really love in life. One of them is rugby. There's like the setbacks can't stop my love for rugby. I can lose a bit of love for it. You could have a coach that maybe makes you lose a bit of love for it. You could have results that maybe make you lose a bit of love for it, and environments potentially. But at the end of the day, it's still there. So I think that's what keeps me grounded the most, is just that, like, I just love the sport.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful, mate. So thank you. You talked briefly about your last experience with the Pride against Chicago, but what's on the immediate future for you then on the playing front?
To be confirmed, still trying to work through some things. I'd like to go down to Australia, be it Hospital Cup or Shoot Shield, so Brisbane comp or New South Wales comp. Or well, I guess Hospital Cup would be all of Queensland. Or if not, like New Zealand would be great as well. Just like to go, it's a different style of rugby. I spent 4 years playing in the UK, which is very structure, kick heavy style of rugby. And now the way that Canada's kind of going is a little bit less that side. Obviously, there's still a place for structure and still a place for kicking, but it's a little bit more of that Southern Hemisphere kind of free flowing transition game, kind of like how France play as well. So to get fully immersed in that, like you can try and do that here, but I think the best way to learn it is to actually just be in it. So I'd like to do that. Although Portugal, like Sam Miller, sounds pretty cool too, but you could only be so lucky to play in that country. Yeah, no, those two, like going down there is kind of the idea. Hopefully that'll happen in February or March, and
With
then
your ability, mate, you could play
kind of
anywhere.
gonna
I'm going to
do
be honest. I think whichever country you decide to go to, you could
well.
play anywhere.
Well, the teams that need tens got to think the same thing. So it's not up to me. And then you end up coming back to. I'll come back for the fall, back to Canada and play for one of the clubs. Talking to one right now, so potentially come back and play in Vancouver or something. And then then it's World Cup year. So whether I'm in it or not will depend on that decision. So 2026
Well,
is
do
a
you
bit of a
think,
big year in terms of trying to get
do you
my.
think those exposures that you have outside of Canada are only going to come back to Canada and make Canada's overall ability greater? With Sam Miller out in Portugal, being exposed to that level after being in Australia, you potentially going out again. Those exposures are only going to improve the game, surely, in Canada.
Yeah, yes. I think that only works if people do come back. Like Miller coming back from Australia, playing in James Bay in the BC Prem. He looks like a different animal. The way he physically in contact, his ability to get around the park as a loose head prop, because he was down in Australia where the ball speed is so much faster. Yeah, it just the only way it works is if the boys do play in those leagues. In the past, I think been a bit guilty of guys will play their whatever season it is, be it MLR down under, and they may, like, some will for sure, but some may not actually play the full season in BC and maybe just take the time off, which is fair. It's everyone's decision, but it only gets better if they actually play. So yes, in theory, yeah, just the boys actually have to play the games for that to come to fruition. Um, the other flip side of it is if no one leaves and everyone plays in the BC Prem, then that level of competition is already raised as well. But that's never going to be the case because, you want to go play in these countries where it's rugby heavy.
But not just rugby heavy, but the different styles of rugby, being exposed to different countries, northern, southern hemisphere play completely different styles of rugby due to many reasons. Being exposed to foreign type players who are a little bit more stronger in the game or a little bit more flamboyant in the game, being exposed to that kind of play can change your mindset. I know you play, right? But wherever you end up going and you do come back to Canada, it hopefully will make you a more grounded but a better player. So then hopefully that can influence how Canada plays going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And I think For me, going to Australia, New Zealand, or wherever I end up, there's like you have a key uh, work on that maybe you're going there for. For me, it's probably my running game. I'm trying to implement a running game, which is an interesting one as well. I was having this debate with Evan in the car. Like a fly half can only attack the line as well as the options around him. Uh, we've been getting pushed to attack the line um, recently quite a bit. It, it's like a big cat and mouse thing, playing fly half as well, where I can only take the ball to the line if I have options inside and outside and out the back to pick from. Because if I don't, then I'm not a threat at the line because I'm just a one-off runner. So that'll be interesting to see how that the players around you are different when you go down there. And I think the players around you can ultimately bring more out of you as well. So that's one thing that I've taken from my experience overseas in the UK is, and we talk about it a lot, the pride is communication, communication, communication. But a lot of the decisions when I played fly half in the UK were kind of made for me. Guys were already in their shape or they were already in their positions. The communication was coming before I even got around the corner. And that is one thing I think you go overseas and you'll see that. And that's just a comfort level of these kids have played rugby since they were 5 years old. They're just comfortable in what they know. Indians play rugby later. They start at 14, 15, maybe some even later than that. So it's just a comfortability thing. But yeah, to your point about going overseas, guys will go overseas and see that level of, I think that's the easiest thing. We have talent, we have rugby players, people can play rugby, but that level of communication and scanning and the little off the ball things is the biggest thing that you can bring back. Yes, you can bring back physicality, but I think if you're a back rower, you're going to be physical anyways. But the biggest things that you can bring back over is those off the ball things and maybe all the off the field things too, seeing what the habits are from guys who are, trying to get it over there as well.
That level of rugby IQ is only going to increase based on exposure. You talked a little bit there about everyone already being set up. So structure allows you to be able to play with a bit more freedom because everybody's movement is creating a
Hmm.
different picture for you to play with more freedom. And I think that goes a little bit
Yeah.
to your own playing style too. You like to play what's in front of you, but you need players around you to be able to create that opportunity also. So we talked about your immediate future. Where do you see yourself in 4 years, and how do you feel this experience with rugby is going to shape your values, both as a person into the player, and where do you see yourself in the next few years?
It's tough. I like if you asked me this question this time last year, I probably would have had, you know, would I have seen myself here? Maybe not. That's actually a really tough question because the reality of rugby is that it's a ever going change and you just kind of go with the ebb and the flow. So where I'd like to see myself is mainstay in the national squad, playing I don't know. I don't really have a preference on playing where, but um I'd like to see myself as a mainstay in the national squad, ideally the starting fly half. I mean, after the World Cup, hopefully, some opportunities open up due to just the reality of the world of Canadian rugby. You can't sustain it forever, so not everyone's going to go until they're 38 years old. But I also would like to have my coaching badges and qualifications by then. I'd like to play in enough kind of environments that would qualify me because I want to coach after rugby ideally, but I know how difficult it is without a reputable background to really get like proper gigs. So hopefully I have my coaching badges, hopefully I've played enough places where like I have good references and whatnot. But I'll be 27. So not
You
that
got
old.
loads of time.
So 27, yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, like just enjoying my rugby, and if I'm enjoying my rugby, it means things have gone my way. But it also might not mean that. It might just mean that I'm playing well. And I can't control selection. So yeah, just enjoying my rugby and playing at a high level wherever it is would be nice. Knock on wood, hopefully no injuries or anything like that.
German, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate you talking honestly, especially about your experiences in Canada, the UK, and back coming playing for the Pride. I think your maturity and your calmness really in those moments and your willingness to be openly today about that internal reality as a young athlete aspiring to go as high as he possibly can, even though nothing's certain. So thank you for that. And I have no doubt, mate, based on my experience with you, you've got more than the ability to go as far as you want. I think a kicking 10, someone who plays with your flair. I think teams out there will try and get you involved. It might not be a sunny climate like Sam Miller, but it's anywhere's better than nowhere, mate. So there we've had Jamin. What you've heard of this side of the sport is really get to see the identity of the player, the pressure, the doubts, the resilience, and the emotional journey behind development, both as a player but as a human being. If you listen to this and you're carrying your own battles, whether in sport, in work, in life, or in silence, please hear this. You're not alone. I live with PTSD every day, and this podcast is part of my own commitment to turn my own struggles into something that supports others. This is my journey to create conversations, to open doors and offer hope and remind people that transformation is always possible. So if today's episode resonated with you, here's how you can support this work. You can follow, like, share, and subscribe at Trauma Training and Transformation, which is on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. Or you can subscribe on YouTube on James Alder 003. You can join my Substack, which is at Transformation Through Training. Or if you want to continue these conversations, you can help me by buying a coffee. The link is in the description box below. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up today. And remember, transformation begins when you decide to rebuild from the inside out.